Well, hello everyone. Welcome to When We Belong Season 2. I'm really excited that you all are continuing to join us on this journey as we explore what it means to really ensure that Washington State is a place where everyone belongs. This means that they got to feel that they belong, which means their lived experience has to not only be centered in the work that we're doing, but we also have to be thinking about all the ways that we can start to change our systems to reflect the needs of all Washingtonians. Well, I'm excited because we got some phenomenal co hosts joining me once again, and you're going to be hearing from a diverse set of voices of folks who are working on these exact issues that we are going to be targeting throughout our topics in their own ways. And look, this is a journey. So you're joining us on this journey as we explore exactly how we're doing this work, why it's important, and some of the barriers that we are experiencing because of this new change of perspective, of need, of the desire to really be there in public service for all Washingtonians. So we encourage you to join us on the journey, listen to learn and to understand. And we also understand this is a new topic for so many folks. So some of it may get a little bit uncomfortable, but we want you to embrace that, because if we're really going to change, it's not going to only require myself and all of the amazing co-hosts of this production, but it's going to require you to be a part of this journey with us. So we encourage you to find your way to ensure that in your role, you're also doing the work to make sure people belong. Because as noted in our title, When We Belong is something that we are truly working towards here in Washington State. Thanks so much for joining us on this journey for season 2. All right, welcome everyone to When We Belong. We are still continuing this conversation. I'm TraeAnna Holiday, the Director of Communications for Washington State's Office of Equity. Joining me today, we got Megan Matthews in the building. Megan, go ahead and let them know who you is.
Hey everyone, it's a pleasure to be back with you again. Megan Matthews, my pronouns are she and her, and I'm the director for Washington State's Office of Equity.
Yeah, well, this is a great opportunity for us to dive in. As y'all can imagine, it is the summer month, so the schedules with everyone is what we're trying to manage. But we wanted to come on today to also shed some light on how we're being proactive in terms of having a solution-oriented mindset, right? What does it look like for us to own some things that we can do around creating Washington for all and a place where everyone belongs? And so I think, Megan, you had some really great points to this, honestly, around, we deal with a lot of ever-changing environments. Doesn't matter if it's political, socioeconomic, whatever it is, we're dealing with a lot of different metrics here. That means that we're always kind of shifting and changing, right? We haven't been able to sit in a certain pocket for some time. But it also means that we have people who are looking at equity and doing a lot of finger pointing. Megan, tell us a little bit more about this topic and how, beneficial it is for us to be owning pieces of this for ourselves.
Yeah, thank you, Trey. I've been doing a lot of reflecting over the last several months, and and maybe because I just took a vacation and I was like, I got some time to pour back into myself and rest, that I was thinking about some of the folks that I know, you included, Trey, who are doing so much work in different arenas, right? And different spaces, and are called upon to do different bodies of work. And it feels to me sometimes like there are folks who are shouldering more of the teamwork, of the bodies of work. Because when we're hearing people saying this is wrong, we need these changes, we need somebody to do this, and then you say, hey, who can help us? There's not very few people who are there and respond. And it just had me thinking about, this idea that we think maybe it's up to somebody else to make the change, but that there are those of us who haven't done our own reflection to understand how we ourselves are perpetuating status quo, how we are. I was just thinking about, I heard Erin Jones speak a few years ago, and she said, we need you to get off the bench, right? You're watching the game happening. You may be commenting, you may be talking about the play by play, but you're not actively in on the offense, on the strategy, on trying to move things forward. And so I just really I really thought it was on my heart to share a message that, hopefully you are taking time out daily, weekly. It's got to be at least one of those to think about what can I do differently to impact the world. And that, especially if you're a state employee watching this, you have power. You may not have, nobody has ultimate power, thankfully. But you do have some power to influence at least one person, whether that's teammates, or you're providing direct services, or you're writing policy that's going to influence how people do business and how people get served. If you're providing some kind of service around what equipment to order, right, you're going to impact how people can do their work. So have you been doing your own reflection, taking time out to think about how am I making the decisions that I'm making, and what is my role? Am I helping us be a more equitable government, helping Washington State become a more equitable state, where no matter where you're from, what you look like, what your ability is, that you are helping us move towards a place of belonging where everyone feels like they belong. And so I just really wanted to share that because, I know sometimes thinking about what should be, creating out of nothing is hard, you know. But take even a small step, do something. It takes practice to get into being solutions oriented, like you said. We need your help. We need you to be a part of the solution. We need you to be doing the work. Nobody's perfect. I mess up every day, right? We will continue to get things wrong, but I am reflecting. Sometimes when I lay my head down at night, that's my brain's telling me all the stuff I messed up on, or when I get in the shower. Apparently, those are the times when my brain is quiet or my body stops moving and my brain's like, "Yep, let's process." But at some point, you have to be processing because we need you. We're a team, and we really need you. And that way, those who are taking on more of the burden right now or more of the work right now can rest. I think that's why we feel like we can't rest sometimes, because if we're not doing it, who will?
Yeah. Well, this is a really viable topic around, belonging, because there is, for me, since really entering this work years ago, there's been no way to shift the responsibilities off of myself to other folks. When I look at some of the things that have been done historically, right, there's some folks who started movements around, activism, whether they were inside or outside of government, who have essentially, they had bodies of work and they said, look, I got this going and I now need to hand it off for other people to continue, or for other people to keep it growing. And it's interesting because when you doing some kind of deep research, learning that, like, they were like, look, someone was asked, they started a whole movement. Someone was asked, why did they stop doing that work? And they were like, look, at the end of the day, I had kids, I had a family too. And that would have been everything I did all the time, because that's how big the body of work is, right? When we're talking about, making sure people are feeling like they belong, then there's a lot of work around freedom and liberation and trying to make sure people felt free, right? And no matter what was written in the Constitution, we all know how it played out for this racial caste system. And so when you think about the ownership that you take on, for me, I'm always thinking about the enormity of what we're dealing with and how any one piece that I am bringing myself to means I'm trying to take a chunk of that enormity and do something about that chunk, right? And so there's always these outcomes that you're looking for, but this is why it requires everyone to be intentional about self-reflection, because if you are not someone who is being mindful and intentional about the moves you're making toward ushering in equity and belonging for everyone, then you have to understand that you're more than likely upholding a lot of status quos. It's hard to kind of work in the gray area. And also, gray areas don't move the needle for people to where they feel the difference and feel the change. And that's really what we're working toward here, right? This is why we established, our own pair pledge. Like, what are you doing? And in your role, what can you impact? And it means you have to be self-reflective in order to, first off, identify the things you're already doing that may be on one side or the other. And like, hey, if I'm just kind of managing in this like gray area, I realize I'm not doing anything to push progress forward, which means really I'm just keeping the system the way it is. And there are some who want the system to stay the same. But I think we always say, I think there's more people who don't want the system to stay the same than those who do, because it's not working for everyone. And it's been an unfair system since its inception. So what are we doing personally to have those self-reflective moments that allow us to be critical of ourselves in a way that make us want to do something else? And then also, what are we learning from in terms of past actions that help us identify current things we can be doing, and then how we're bringing in the next generation to understand the bodies of work. And as a mother, Megan, I don't know about you, but for me as a mother, I'm always thinking this work is, this is my leg of the race. And then what does it look like for my kids to be in the next leg of this race? And how am I bringing young people, not just my own children, but how am I working with younger folks? How am I engaging with younger people so they can start to see themselves as, man, like, well, when that baton comes to me, here are some of the ideas I have about moving it forward. And I think maybe just as a parent, you can't help but to be thinking about the world we're leaving for our children, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's why the stakes are so high, and also this idea, I mean, we need people to help us push back past this zero sum mindset too, right? I really believe there's enough in Washington State for us all. And so how do we move this forward in a way where those communities who have been furthest from opportunity get prioritized? But that doesn't mean that they're the only ones who get prioritized, because I think there's enough for us all. So how do we make sure that our communities are a part of advocating for the things that we need, and we can fit that in a puzzle together and work with other communities too to make sure that we all get served? Because I think sometimes we get caught up in this where every time everything has to be for everyone. And I don't think that's what's going to get us to the finish line. I think, using that target universalism. So if you haven't heard about that, please look it up. By John A. Powell and the Othering Belonging Institute is going to be critical to us moving forward. Heather McGhee talks about it in The Sum of Us. And I think, and look at her TED Talk. So I would look up her TED Talk. It's, I think, 13 minutes, right? She has a whole book, but for you that are like to receive things visually, auditorily, is that the word? Through listening, then just Google that and watch that. Because we have to do our own work, not only understanding. One of the ways, I guess, you have to understand if you're perpetuating oppression or you don't know how your can help us move forward, is by learning more and understanding kind of what is status quo. When we say that, we throw out a lot of terms all the time, right? And we're like status quo and this and that, and we don't even know what we're talking about. So please be doing some work to understand, what do we mean when we say, what is status quo? What is current state? Right. And then, okay, well, because then if I can understand what current state is, right? Remember those story problems? Now, I'm going to be honest, I was never good at those. Never. I didn't understand if Johnny had 5 and Morgan had 2, and then Javante had 5, what did Timmy have? I don't know, because where did Timmy come from? Okay, I don't understand. But if you do your work to understand the historical context, right, starting from when the first people landed here and there were already people here, right? And then we brought some other people from other country and we didn't ask them if they wanted to come or not, right? I mean, you have to understand all of that, and then all past, right? Um, you have to understand that legacy, that history, and then understand current state. So then you can understand, okay, how am I a part of the system? These are all systems, but they're all run by people. So how can I then be part of making change? Um, and so all that is important. There is a little bit of research, but I mean, your phones are, most of us, okay, I do know people, I'm not gonna throw you out there, Dad, okay, who still have flip phones. They exist. But most of us, we have things, we don't have to go to the Dewey Decimal System in the library. It's right here at our fingertips,
Yeah.
right? Looks up now, be careful about your source. So I would read 2 or 3 different sources just to make sure what you're getting is real, is like uh based in reality or based in what really happened back then.
Yeah.
But you can just Google. I somebody told me something, I went and I was like, let me look this up real fast. Oh, actually, I had to look up imperialism because I've been hearing that, and I was like, let me look up, what does this mean? I mean, it's right there, right? So that's how, if you want to know, how do you know what you know, Megan? I'm looking stuff up and doing my research, right? You can do that too. You don't have to look it up on your phone. You can do it a different way if you want. Podcasts, documentaries, whatever you want to do, that is your responsibility as someone who lives in this land that we're in right now, right? It's in Washington State. I'm going to say, speak just for Washington State. Do that work so then you can understand what is the system. So then you can understand how you can impact change. That is your responsibility. And what I would say is, we need you. We need you to help. Those folks who are doing a lot of work, I can't say I'm one of them, but those folks who are doing just day in, day out, 24/7, they don't get no breaks and stuff. They need you to help. And don't feel like you have to do it all. Start small. Start somewhere, right? I think about one more example. I think about, I started my first job. I was working at Auntie Anne's pretzel shop, best pretzels, just want to say, in the mall, 16, making minimum wage, which was back then. But like, that's what I was doing. And now I get the privilege of being a director, but I didn't start out that way, right? We won't say how many years ago that was, but it was several years ago. Okay. You have to start somewhere, start where you are, and then you can work up or sideways, or, maybe you're in a job, you're making the same money, but you're doing something that's more aligned with your passion. Just please do it. Do it in a thoughtful, intentional, informed way. We don't want you to be out there start doing anything, because then you could create more harm. But be informed, and do something with the information that you're getting.
Yeah, I recently heard a phrase that it just resonated with me so well. Kudos to Chardonnay Beaver for this phrase of she said her parents raised her and her siblings to be in the pursuit of purpose. And like not the pursuit of happiness, but the pursuit of purpose. And I thought, wow, that is profound, right? And when you recognize that you may be in a job you love, and ultimately, in that role, when you start really being self reflective, you begin to identify ways that you can begin to impact change. And for some that may have a harder time being able to identify that, you know, you got me onto these audio books, Megan. Kudos to you, right? Taking in information from sources who have done the research, who have all of the sources to their books and to their research really helps, because we now have access to so much information, so much knowledge. And as you said, to start small, sometimes it means that you have to go back and get more historical context so that you can identify where you are in the spectrum in terms of how you can impact change or how you can make things more belonging, in a more belonging state, right? And it does mean that you have to be intentional. And I want to keep using that word because this isn't something that just happens on the fly. You really do have to be intentional. And I appreciate, Megan, your point around those who are pulling more than their majority of the weight need everyone else to step up. And it is something where it requires all of us. And y'all have heard us talk about this message before on When We Belong, because we know it's not just going to happen with a few folks. And so, Megan, thanks for making time today so we could dive a bit into this topic. We're always encouraging you here in this series to find out how you are contributing to ensuring that Washington State is a place where everyone feels like they belong. And it's real when it's being felt, right? That's when we know there's a difference between being transactional and relational, or performative versus transformative, right? We know there's a difference because when people feel it, they know it's coming from a genuine, authentic place. So we thank y'all for following along with this series as we continue to have some of these discussions that dive deeper into the ways that we can make sure we become the place that people want to be at because they feel like they belong. Thanks so much again, Megan, for your time today. And thank all of y'all for listening and watching. We appreciate you. And until next time, we will be back with more contributors to this discussion and continue this topic of when we belong. Thanks so much for watching.